All right, what's up, New York? How's it going? I'm Russ Facatoro, bringing you guys the 33rd episode of the Apples to Apples podcast. First time you're seeing me on video for one of these. I know I put out the Ross's rant, some of that other, content type shit. Listen, looking at it from just overall, talk about content, wanting to expand, different platforms I put stuff out on and everything. I figure, what better, no, not what better way, but, you look at this day and age and, podcasts, the way they're distributed, you don't really see that many that solely go the audio route. A lot of them, you name it, sports wise, just general, one-to-one combos, all that. A lot of them have visual aspects to them as well, whether it be YouTube, hell, even Vimeo, if that's still a thing. Probably aging myself there, however fucking all that site is. Case in point, just wanting to put out another, way of accessing my content here with the podcast episodes themselves. The short snippet clips, like the rants and everything, even some of the the interactive graphics I put out, everything. But that's more so for the Instagram. As far as the overall show, the overall podcast, the episodes, the takes, and all that, having a not only having Spotify to access it audio wise, but having now the having a video uh form or option to it. I feel like it was time a lot long overdue. There you go. That's the phrase I'm looking for. A little bit of a brain fart there, but yada yada. Just putting out a video form of the podcast, but Spotify sticking the same. Probably put this out and get the YouTube channel going. That I haven't really added much to, but as far as kind of to growing the channel outward a little bit. What better way to do it? At a time where you're looking at NHL season that's just getting over its All-Star break, which we'll get to, the midway, point of the season. An NBA season is nearing the midpoint, nearing their All-Star break. An MLB season that's a little less than a month removed from getting going, down in Florida and Arizona, grapefruit cactus leagues. Spring training we got going in a short few weeks. We got a hell of a guy still on the market. We'll get to that. Blake Snell, Cody Bellinger still unemployed with the season just around the corner. We're going to start off with the football. A little, I shouldn't even say a little less, exactly 7 days away from Super Bowl 58 and out in Las Vegas, Nevada. You obviously look at, the two teams rematch from a couple years ago. We saw the big game in 2020. Obviously, the few short weeks of that calendar year before disaster struck, with the COVID and all that, we don't have to rehash it, but you're looking at the AFC's Kansas City Chiefs versus the NFC's San Francisco 49ers running it back in the big game once again. And listen, you look at the tail, you want to talk about different times way back when. It seemed like 4 years ago, it seems like an eternity with the way shit panned out off the field mainly. A lot of similarities between the two teams, but there's a hell of a lot of differences too in a span of 4 years. We'll start off with the Chiefs. Listen, you got 15 under center, you got 87 at tight end still. Mahomes, Kelsey, you wouldn't know about because the all the bullshit in the press box we'll get to with that the Taylor Swift and all that. I don't even know if we have to get to it, but media covers it enough. Mahomes, Kelsey haven't skipped a beat. The one thing you could say is Tyreek Hill cheated. Was found his way out of town. He's a thing of the past out in Missouri. And the last time they had this matchup for the big game, they had him as a wideout option. Now your number one option is Rashee Rice, who's put together a pretty solid rookie season. He's not all that yet just yet. He's a solid. I wouldn't even say he's a solid number one. He has a solid rookie year, not a definitive number one target yet. And then after that, just shit hits the fan. You got guys from Marquez Valdes-Scantling dropping the ball. The Philly game, I think it was regular season. I know he had the big catch out in Baltimore, clinched the AFC title for him. But he's not really a number two. Yeah, Richie James, Kadarius Toney, if he even played, I know he's got like fucking pussy aches or something. Reason he couldn't play the other day, like calf strain or something. He said he wasn't even hurt. He said the Chiefs diagnosed it, injured him for him, and he said he had some like family thing. I think he had a kid that was born. Things, kind of the goalposts moved on and on and on, and before you know it, the guy's just like kind of like one of those operation boards. Kind of, you just pick and choose what's wrong with him week after week. Guy finds every excuse not to play. It's like Ben Simmons and cleats. Kadarius Toney. And when he does play, he's a liability. Cough, cough, the Detroit game, and hell, we almost had a Kansas City Detroit rematch from the first game of the season to the last. Talk about full circle moment. How would you like to have him on the field? Talk about week one was one thing. Start off the season 0-1, you don't miss a beat because you look like a dog shit team all regular season, and yet we still see you in the final game of the season in early February. We still every single year, just when you thought they were out, they pull you back in. And you want to talk, we'll get to this in a second. We'll talk about an offense. Listen, Mahomes, no doubt about it. When he's under center, they're going to be a great team year in, year out. They could be as lethargic as could be on offense, which they have been. Andy Reid obviously still calling it, Matt Nagy. We want to say Matt Nagy because they were Nagy, whatever. He's taking over offensive calling. Andy Reid calls the plays. It don't matter. Look at Eric Bieniemy. Everybody would say he's got to be a head coach. He goes down to Washington. He's irrelevant now. It's like a poof. He's just completely out of the head coaching talks. So much so Dan Quinn, defensive minded coach, took the gig from across the division in Dallas. But that's neither here nor there. Um, Kansas City, you look at, from an offensive standpoint, obviously it was not all that this year. As long as you got Mahomes, Kelsey, that 1-2 punch, you're gonna find ways to win games. Hell, you're talking about from an overall historic standpoint. This is just, this has gone from great current duo now in this day and age to some people are already making the arguments, let alone giving it a few years. People already are making the arguments for the best quarterback tight end duo. I still think it's Gronk Brady. We got to see him more and more down the road, in my opinion. Hell, 4 of the last 5 years, you got this Kelsey Mahomes doing the Super Bowl. The one that they lost, obviously the one that Philly, they won the first San Fran. One they lost was down to Tampa with a 40-year-old Brady and a 39-year-old Gronk, or ages mixed up, whatever, both pushing 40. And obviously, Gronk was basically damaged goods, but Brady still had the connection, and that was Mahomes' reason why Mahomes isn't undefeated in big games. But from an overall standpoint, as long as you got, number 15, is he number 15? I keep saying that. I'm 99% sure number 15, but as long as you got Mahomes at QB, you're good to go. You can afford a shaky regular season from honestly weeks 1 to 18. There was really no point in the season, you want to say record wise, they may have had a smooth sailing for a little bit, but they were a sloppy team from weeks 1 to 18. They lost the Vegas game was ugly, and that game meant something. That was Christmas Day, I believe. Back-to-back plays. Mahomes, I think he had definitely had the pick six to Jones at like their own 20. And then I think they had a fumble or something that Vegas ran right into. They had the loss to Philly. I brought up before the Scantling drop. If anything, deteriorated Philly season more than theirs. He had Sirianni like a jackass, yelling to the KC fans all like, screw you and everything, to kiss my ass or whatever. And I think they won like one game after that. It was that the Giants game also on Christmas Day, which they didn't deserve to win. Talking about Philly. But Kansas City, just hit a rough patch, just a rough regular season for them. But like I said, just when you thought they were out, here they are, early February, playing for the big grand old prize. And listen, offensively, they were struggling. They didn't look like your same old Chiefs. Defensively, you could make an argument that Steve Spagnuolo's crew was the reason why they were even here in the first place. Obviously, you got guys like Chris Jones, one of the best D tackles in the league. You got guys in that secondary, Trent McDuffie, I believe was a rookie last year. He's been one of the best corners in the league ever since he took over. L'Jarius Sneed making a name for himself this year. Hell, even a guy like Willie Gay. I know he's getting talks. Was at one of the press conferences? What was it? The Jets or somebody? He was talking about a team that like they had like no offensive scheme or something. Uh, he made a little bit of a name for himself, but really L'Jarius Sneed had the breakout season. McDuffie doing his thing, and then Chris Jones, been one of one of the best to do it at his position for a while now. But just overall, you could talk about Kansas City and this the upbringing of this dynasty that we're seeing unfold before our eyes. This Andy Reid Andy Reid led Chiefs dynasty, which for a while Andy Reid was considered one of the best coaches to ever do it, to not have the ring to prove it, and now he's got two, maybe going on three, hell, maybe going on even more. But I think for the first two rings, or the first three appearances, a lot of people say, this is just them riding on the offense, balls to the wall and the offense doing their thing. I don't know if you can say that this year. Hell, I know you can't say that this year. Because yeah, they may have, caught stride when it mattered most, but they almost didn't even make it to where it mattered most in the first place if it weren't for, a couple weeks where they got bailed out by Spagnola's unit. And overall, like I'm saying now, Mahomes, Kelsey getting it going. I know Kelsey had shit ton of receptions against Baltimore, but for a while, for a long while, Kansas City, I think they had the most improved defense, by yards allowed per game or points allowed per game, some metric. Them in Minnesota are like neck and neck with Brian Flores, which, from a Vikings standpoint, thank the Lord he didn't take a head coach opening. But anyway, listen, man, Kansas City, you want to talk about this? May be the first year in this new age dynasty out in Kansas City, Missouri, that you could give the testament to the defensive side of the ball out there than the offensive side. And who's to say they don't put out an offensive onslaught? I'd San Francisco's defense could get to it a second. And you want to talk about loaded defenses, they're the epitome of it. Uh from what we've seen this year, I think this is kind of the outlier year where you kind of saw a switch of listen, the offense did just enough, but the defense is the reason why, they were still top dogs, when people didn't really consider them to be a threat. And they looked like, they were damaged goods, they still remained a threat. And as kind of segueing into the other team playing this Sunday, San Francisco, you want to talk about just overloaded talent, offensively, defensively. You want to start off offense. You finally got a someone who is generally looked at as a borderline top 10 quarterback in the league. Not a lot of people were saying that about Jimmy Garoppolo. Hell, I don't know more than I don't even think I know one person that was calling Jimmy Garoppolo a top 10 quarterback because I don't think anybody was. On the other hand, now you got a one-time Mr. Relevant, now turned Mr. Relevant in Mr. Brock Purdy. Listen, he's no stranger to spurred up debates. And I remember there's one clip, I forgot the lady's name, but there was a video that went viral talking about going into the divisional round. 8 teams left. She said there's seven great elite quarterbacks still left in the playoffs, and then there's Brock Purdy. They made the waves. I remember another one was Cam Newton talking about game managers. He name dropped Purdy. I think Jared Goff, Prescott. I think it was Tua Tagovailoa was the other one. Purdy kind of it's like the Snoop Dogg praying in the court, beating the allegations. Purdy has done everything in his power to try to beat the product of the system, the game manager allegations, and no matter what he does, uh people still gonna nag on him. Listen, am I gonna go out? Am I gonna go out on a limb and say he's the second coming of Joe Montana out there? Absolutely not. But I think the fact that, listen, when we look at the rest of that offense, you look at it in terms of skill players, George Kittle at tight end, Debo, Brandon Ayuk, one of the more underrated wideouts in the league. Hell, you even got Kyle Juszczyk, which is like the consensus best fullback still remaining in the league. Hell, you even got CMC in the backfield. You add to the equation. Talk about a dual threat, most likely going to win Offensive Player of the Year. So, and you got Trent Williams up front. Some of those names. How could you not be a game manager in that, in that scenario? So the fact that he's doing, listen, I look at it from you don't got to be the all pro perennial top player at your position, in that system, but you also don't got to be a liability like Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance were the rare occasion Lance took the field. He wasn't the greatest sight in the world. And Jimmy Garoppolo, I guess you could say was that bare minimum, but he was on point, the bare minimum. It's a miracle that they even got there with him. Kind of given, if you looked up I don't know. I don't know where I'm getting at. You look at, Garoppolo this year, the fucking implosion in Vegas, and, kind of rode off into the sunset, losing his job to Aiden O'Connell. This is a guy that quarterbacked the team to a Super Bowl appearance 4 years ago and had a 2010 lead at halftime before they gave up 21 unanswered. But, you look at Purdy taking over. When was it Garoppolo got hurt last year with the foot injury? Purdy took over like week 11 or 12, and they were smooth sailing ever since. Hell, if he didn't even get hurt in that NFC Chip game down in Philly, they have like was it Jalen? Not Jalen. He's the corner in Chicago. Johnson, some career nomad Johnson under center who was more ineffective than my 3-year-old fucking cousin. They could have made it last year too. This could have been a three-peat, and not consecutive, but this could have been episode 3 of KC San Fran. They got that going offensively. You want to talk about a defensive unit where they already had Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. I think, yeah, Hano was hurt, or Talafanga. I can't pronounce his fucking name. He's great. Charvarius Ward. You add Chase Young, right? Randy Gregory still got some gas left in the tank, but you got Steve Wilkes calling the plays. Contrary to now current head coach of the Jets, Robert Saleh was calling the defensive side of the ball 4 years ago down in Miami. Listen, Steve Wilkes, you want to talk about failed head coach not once but twice? No, let me even say twice. I don't know if he coach before Arizona. I'm not sure, but Arizona was a one and done. People got on that situation. In Carolina, he was all right as an intern. He didn't get the job, but you look at not only solid, but the turnaround they had with D'Amico Ryans. Now you see what he's doing out in H-Town with C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson, all that. They're going to be a threat for a while. But Steve Wilkes, I believe, yes, is year one. Listen, with all that talent, there's not much more you could do. Let the players play. Surprise to no one, one of the better, if not the best defensive unit in the league. Period. Stop. And that's always going to be a big advantage for the San Francisco team that's just loaded top to bottom with defensive talent. And I guess you want to say if you want to cap off, one roster analysis, you want to look at special teams with the kickers. You got one of the best in the league in Harrison Bucker for KC. Meanwhile, you got Jake Moody, who's a fucking bipolar with his kicks. Every other one's either wide right or straight down the middle. I remember people say with the Detroit if he was going to play kamikaze or something, because I'm pretty sure he didn't miss a kick. He's from Michigan. People were saying he was going to bomb the game or something. They won. They didn't really need him, but they had a couple kicks. But case in point, he lost the fucking Cleveland game. He was shaky all year. Adam Fancy, a fucking disaster. Contrary to Robbie Gold, who's like 56, collecting AARP checks now. That could be something that plays a factor some point in the game. But all in all, you look at KC San Fran. San Fran probably there's an argument to be made with them, Philly, even if you want to say Dallas on paper. Between those three, even Detroit, I hate to say it breaks my fucking heart to say, but Detroit might have to be in that mix there too. They had that was it 24/7, 7-Eleven always open 24/7. That lead was Dan Campbell going for it not once but twice. Ultra aggressive. That was his MO the whole year. And came back to bite him in the ass. You want to talk about biting kneecaps? You got bit in your own ass because you got too aggressive, Detroit. But all in all, you look at a team there, they were a threat. They had it there. I know Evan Roberts, I heard him on the radio saying losers lose. Well, you're telling me Vikings, Mets, all that. Oh, you got fucking Browns fans. At least that was a no contest for them. They didn't have to see their hearts broken like they had to see in the divisional round at Arrowhead a couple of years ago with the helmet to helmet and the touchback. No, at least this one was smooth sailing, was over in the second quarter. But Detroit, they had the heartbreak, looked like they were going to Vegas. Their first Super Bowl appearance would have made them the last NFC team, I believe. No, Cleveland, Houston, Jacksonville, I think have never been in one. Detroit would have been the last and final NFC team to appear in a Super Bowl. Would have been all 16, but you play 4 quarters. San Fran, by far the better second half team. They keep on dancing while Mufasa falls off the cliff, but that's the circle of life. And oh, that was corny as hell. But you know what? Reference is not bad. All in all, I'm gonna cap it off with this. Super Bowl 58. If I might pull up the lines real quick. I'll give you a over under, I'll give you the line too. So as a via CBS broadcast the game, I don't know what book they're using. They got the Chiefs getting 2 +2 on the spread and an over under set at 47.5 currently. So week prior to the game, so things may change, lines may vary. But I'll give you this on you know what? I'll give you this for right now. I might change it if I do an episode closer to the game. Listen, man, I hate to say it. How could you bet against Patrick Mahomes seeing the way he's playing right now? Going in, I put out like a bracket prediction. I had Miami beating them in the first round. And I had Philly going to the Super Bowl because what Kansas City's doing, what I thought Philly would do is kind of like save their best football for when it mattered most, is what Kansas City's doing right now. But I didn't think Kansas City had it in them. But seeing the fact that Kansas City has it in them, I don't know how I could bet against Patrick Mahomes, how I could bet against Travis Kelce, how I could bet against Taylor Swift. Because you know what? The fact that they're showing her after fucking Isaiah Pacheco touchdowns, Rashee Rice first down conversions, everybody's showing Taylor Swift. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22. Every single fucking play. Saw someone ruled as eligible. Another shout out to Detroit. Every single thing. She's there. There's odds on if they're gonna propose or something. And I saw something on Twitter if they're gonna play Kanye's Famous with the whole dig at her from the is it MTV or something years ago when Kanye and Taylor Swift had beef if the Niners were gonna play the song walking out, which would be elite trolling, but they wouldn't do that. But Taylor Swift, what could you say? It's a dead beaten horse, literally and figuratively. Kidding. But listen, you think the way the NFL is making a profit off this whole Swift Kelsey dealio, even on the podcast, Dave Dropper, you see Jason Kelsey climbing in and out of the press box like a gorilla, the suites, with the shirtless and pounding the beers. Bills Mafia, it's a nightmare. But they got it going. Right now, I'm taking the Chiefs getting the 2 and the over-under set at 47.5. Give me the over. Last time these two played, 31-20 final score. You got a 51 total. Listen, I know you even got Purdy now. Purdy over Garoppolo, I was telling you before. Give me the over 47.5. But I'll update that. If the lines switch, I'll do a different one. I'll do one closer to the game. But cap that off with the football discussion. Listen, I brought up before, we're at the midway points of the NHL and NBA season. It's not yet NBA, but we're getting there. NHL, you had the All-Star game a couple hours earlier Saturday afternoon up in Toronto. I think it was the first time Toronto hosted it since 2000, they said. Uh, the brand, the jerseys, they had they drafted. So for a while, you don't follow the NHL. A lot of people, I guess, tune out of the All-Star game. For a while, they were doing divisional teams. So it was based off you had an Atlantic team, Metro team, Central Pacific, yada yada. Prior to that, they had players draft the teams, and actually, I don't know. They had that, and then they had the traditional East versus West. But then they had players draft the teams for a couple years, and then for like the last 5 or 6 years, they had just the divisions, the two East divisions, two West divisions, winner of both match up for a cash prize, and the MVP got like a car or something. And they went back to the draft format. They had pick designated team captains. Not only do we have players this year, we also had celebrity guests. There was a Canadian theme up in Toronto. I think it was we had Justin Bieber was like the whole face of the event. Michael Bublé, he made the news, high on shrooms and everything. Will Arnett and Tate McRae, I guess, is a big singer up there. Twitter had a field day with that one. All right, I'll put it that way. Um, but they listen. You have guest celebrities drafting the teams. You pair them up with I know it was team Matthews, McDavid, McKinnon, and Hughes was supposed to be Jack Hughes. Kind of have like a designated captain from each division, but Jack had the injury, so they just subbed him out with Quinn Hughes. But I didn't watch the entire thing, and the skills competition they changed too. We'd be here forever if I tried describing that. I didn't watch the whole game, but the whole design, the premise, the design of the jerseys were terrible. The premise, if you look at them, it's like the all lowercase font. I swear to God, when I tell you, it looks like a fucking Target spokesperson designed this game. I thought, for sure when they're talking about this whole craze with the Stanley Cups, like these Yetis are selling in the Targets and Walmarts and everything. I swear to God, I thought that was going to be the award for the MVP of the game, which wound up being Austin Matthews. Talk about home cooking. But his team won the game. The event they had Team Matthews had Shesterkin, Trocheck, and Barzal. Talk about locals. Uh, I think Shesterkin and Barzal faced each other in one of the skills yesterday. It was like a breakaway, the new version of the breakaway challenge or the safe streaks challenge. One of them. They had like 12 designated. They didn't have every All-Star participate. I know one that did was Nikita Kucherov, who looked more fucking bored than me, in a fucking DMV or anybody in the DMV for that matter. Kuja, one of the contests, I think it was like the passing accuracy challenge, with the little nets and the things light up and all that. Had like a 6 points after a minute and a half. They were booing the damn guys, still waving them, like hyping them up. They were booing them because they said, and listen, I can't blame them because if you look at from the standpoint of those players, I remember Seattle put out a video talking about Oliver Bjorkstrand was their representative. Every team has a representative, and Bjorkstrand was the one for Seattle. And they did like a piece for digital, like recording his reaction. And Haxtell, their coach, started off by saying, Bjorkstrand, did you have any plans for the All-Star break? And he's saying, yeah, me and the family booked a trip, down the not down the like one of the beaches, Caribbean, one of those little family vacation. Axel says, "Oh, is it too late to, is it too late to say sorry? You want to talk about fucking song references? Is it too late? Is it too late to cancel those plans? You're going up to Toronto." And when you look at this motherfucker's face, you want to talk about misery, not wanting to be somewhere. Because you know what? The majority of those guys just don't want to be there. Period. Stop. And Kucherov, how could you nag the guy? Let's see, he's there year in, year out. You see the rest of his teammates. Listen, he plays in Tampa, so I'm not shedding tears for the guy. But that's got to get. I know Ovechkin was one. He takes a suspension every year. If you get elected to the All-Star game, you bail. You get a 1-game suspension, and I know that because Ovechkin gets it annually. But listen, Kucherov is in some rocky waters. But all in all, listen, it sounds like the event got a solid reputation, that's what I'm looking for. Reaction, I guess is what I was saying. Uh, Actually, they broke news. For the next couple of years, they're not going to have an All-Star game. They're actually doing the like tournament of nations or something. They're going to have like a 4-way tournament between U.S., Canadian, Finnish, and Swedish players, kind of like a 4-way bracket. I believe they said the next 2 years that was mixed in with like they're allowing the NHL players to play in the Olympics again. I think it was about like a 12, 13-year ban. I think the last time they played was 2010 was I think Vancouver. Not sure on that. I'm not the biggest Olympic enthusiast in the world, but I know that got some traction and just overall, some significant moves this weekend for the National Hockey League. But from a local standpoint, put a little spin on it, kind of like a midway grades for all three of the New York area teams. We'll start off from top to bottom in the Metro. You got the first place New York Rangers by a whopping 2 points. Yes, how long this division had like a 10, 15 point differential separating between the first place Rangers and who was in that dogfight between the Canes, Flyers. Isles were there for a while. Now it's a 2 point difference between them and the Carolina Hurricanes of Raleigh. Listen, you look at the New York team, you want to talk about, I don't even want to say peaking early. I think I used that one of the Ross's rants. You want to talk, it's kind of hard not to say they peaked early. Do I think they'll still make the playoffs? Yes, probably. I mean, that would have to be an all-time fucking Pompeii-like catastrophic collapse for them to not make it entirely. But to think that the division's a sure lock like people perceived it to be a couple months ago, that's a thing of the past. And a team that looked like it cannot lose whatsoever a month and a half into the season, the fact that you're now, at a respectable 63 points, good for was like top 5 or 6 in the league. I don't have it, but uh considering where they are as it stands, I gotta give them like a B plus B, probably a B, because this record is more so how they came out of the gates flying like there was no tomorrow. Peter Laviolette, oh, what were we doing with Gallant for 2 years, this and that. And now you look at them, they can't buy a fucking win. They embarrass themselves out in San Jose, blowing the 2-0 lead going into the third. This is the worst team in the league. Everything, you name it. Legitimate stats, bullshit stats, analytic, every single stat in the world you could think of. The 32nd team is the San Jose Sharks. You 2-0 lead. That's probably fucking despicable in its own right. You only got a 2-0 lead against them, and you blow it. You go to OT, and you got them playing tic tac toe in front of the net. Igor, listen, the furthest thing from an Igor defender. What the hell is he supposed to do? Miller's a dumbass in the defensive zone. Mika's got his head so far up his ass. He looks like a third line center now. Speaking of third line centers, we don't have one because Filipino's out for the year. He re-aggravated an injury that fell on his own uh, as a non-participant in practice, wearing, I think it's the yellow jersey, the non-contact jersey. So there's some news that broke there. Listen, a Rangers team, what majority of their wins, majority of the success we still see on paper on the standings came from October to late November. And the December was mediocre, and January was a flat out embarrassment. So this break much needed. They got Colorado, I believe, on Monday, at home ice against Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, and the visiting Colorado Avalanche. So got to right the ship there. Moving on to the Islanders, currently sitting at fourth in the Metro Division, 2017-12 record with 52 points on the year. They made a coaching change. One of, I believe they said six today. I was listening to the All-Star game. They said six head coaching changes in the league. The most recent one being Tom McClellan with the LA Kings. You want to talk about free fall. And of course, one of their 3 wins in the last month and a half for the Kings out there was the 2-1 win versus the Blue Shirts. Islanders made a coaching change, getting rid of Lane Lambert. They bring in Patrick Waugh, of course, and I think the big their claim to fame this year is the 1 point in overtime. I believe they lead the league. I'd be surprised if they didn't. Yeah, they have 12. Columbus has 10. And other than that, you got Seattle and the Kings also got 10. Nobody got 12. Islanders leading that department. And if, technically having a losing record, but finding scrappy ways to get those points, I believe the nail in the coffin for no pun intended, coffin, Dracula with Lambert. I believe the nail in the coffin though for him was the OT loss at Chicago, middle of January. But you want to talk about the epitome of, and I don't even say this as a nag, just the epitome of mediocrity is the New York Islanders. They're not, they're really, they got pieces now. Bo Horvat's been more than enough. I think it's safe to say now that trade was a win, considering Bevillier's out of Vancouver, and add to Rady, however you pronounce it. He hasn't been all that either. Listen, Vancouver got Roenick out of that deal in a separate deal. But as far as the Islanders, Bo Horvat, more than you could ask for. So that deal was a win. But some of these contracts, lose handing out. The Scott Mayfield deal is ridiculous. Pajot's still getting top dollar. Anders Lee, production's not there for the money he's making. You even see like Barzal had a resurgence for a little, Barzal kind of having a comeback caliber year for, a couple of years. He was kind of not to his full potential. And Noah Dobson's been a under the radar Norris candidate. He probably won't win. He'll probably go to Quinn Hughes, but he's been great for that blue line. But it's some of these contracts, Ben, and they're kind of stuck in that middle ground where they'll sneak into the playoffs, they'll win a game or two, and they don't have that top draft capital, essentially last year. So, but if I have to grade their season right now, I'd probably give them, circumstantially a similar grade to the Rangers listed. I give them like a B minus. You got a coach in Lambert who's, accepting the bare minimum, getting you a point every game, every other game, occasional 2 points sprinkled in there, and they move on. They realize, they need a changing of the guard. Everybody wants them out of town. They've hit a little bit of a rough patch to end January. I'm seeing here they lost like, 7 out of their last 8. Two of them being an OT. and their one win was also an OT at Dallas or versus Dallas. All fucking mixed up. That was actually Wild's first game. They lost the next three. But you made a change. The fan base wanted Lambert gone. It was clear you weren't going to do much with him. And I don't even know why he got rid of Trotz in the first place. I know he took the GM gig. But listen, you're essentially playing how everybody expected you to play. You can't really nag on him too much for that. So I'm going to give him a B minus. And a team who hasn't played up to par for how people expected their season to go is the current number 6 seed in the Metro Division, that being the New Jersey Devils. Something that they could say they have that the Islanders can't is a winning record, albeit one game over 500. You're 24-20-3. New Jersey Devils. This is a team that you look at an offensive juggernaut. Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, Timo Meyer, Dawson Mercer having a breakout year. You bring in Toffoli for Sharon Govich, who was a death piece and nothing more. I know he's broken out in Calgary, but hey, Toffoli's had his moments too. I know people want him gone ever since Hughes got traded, saying he's a product of '86, but he only follows that up with a hat trick and a game winner against Vegas on home ice. Even got the defense. I know Dougie Hamilton went down with an injury. You sub him out with Simone Nemec, looked like an absolute stud ever since he got called up. Luke Hughes has had his moments. And you see what his older brothers have turned into. You can only have more than hope for what 43 could turn into on your blue line. And but it all comes to a halting stop with the fact that you have maybe the worst goaltending tandem in the league between Vitek Vanacek, Akira Schmid, who's now mopping floors up in Adirondack or Utica, wherever the fuck their AHL team is, and Nico Doss. And essentially that's the reason why you're staring sub 500 right in the face with a team that looked like we brought them up before, the team of destiny in Detroit, in the Detroit Lions. This is essentially the Detroit Lions of the NHL. This young team that hasn't seen recent success, seeing the years and years of grief, misery, pain building up into something special, all, kind of clicking at once. It clicked last year. You were a 2 seed. It clicked when you were down 2-0. You gained all that momentum. Everybody thought you were down and out. You ain't heard no bell. And you stuck it to your crosstown rivals from across the river and embarrassed them. Not only for the last 5 games, but the game 7 was probably the most fucking pitiful display of a attempt to win a 60-minute hockey game I've ever seen, from the Rangers standpoint. But you capitalized. You won 4-0. Akira Schmidt, Akira, hips don't lie. I say you sweeping floors. He had a shutout in a pivotal game 7. And he imploded versus Carolina. But listen, the talent on these lines, yeah, I even bring up Palat. I know he hasn't been all that, but a solid piece. It's just not good enough. It's not good enough. You see these lines getting wasted. People blaming it on Ruff because another name I didn't bring up, Alexander Holtz. You see he's good for a goal every other game for your young underperforming star, I guess you want to say. I know he's not first overall like Laugh, second overall like Kako before Devils fans get your laughs in. But people saying Ruff, you're not playing the kids. Well, when he plays, he gets he shows glimpses. People getting on Ruff saying, why is he still our head coach? He's not the right guy to be leading this younger group. It worked last year. This year, not so much. This year, probably give him the lowest of the 3. I definitely give him the lowest. Giving them a C minus because these lines should be a surefire playoff team. This should be essentially a unofficial lock to be a playoff contender. And how tight knit this Eastern Conference is. Right now they wouldn't be top 3, and the 4-5 is Toronto and the Wings both at 58. So you are 7 points out of a playoff spot as a wild card, with the second half of the season getting underway in 2 days. That's not good enough. I mean, you going into the year, nationally, people had deep playoff run / Stanley Cup aspirations for your team in mind, and you're getting held back by some of the most mediocre goaltending you could see. It's not good enough. And you look at the Devils team. Listen, they're not going anywhere most likely, but as of right now, a win now mode every single year counts. It's not good enough. And listen, you got the Stadium Series coming up soon at MetLife. It's kind of a bummer. Jack Hughes not going to be playing. Dougie Hamilton, I believe, is not going to be playing. Well, they're not playing the Rangers. I keep mixing it up. It's Devils, Flyers, the first night, and Rangers, Islanders, the second. I know those are the matchups. I'm not sure the nights. But Jack Hughes, Dougie Hamilton will both be sidelined for it. And listen, that's kind of been a contributing factor too. But this happened way before those two went down with the injuries, and it starts with the incompetence you have in the crease over in Newark. And essentially, as we kind of wrap things up on this episode, don't want to go too long. Was look at it from a quick basketball. Let's start off with the basketball. You look at the Knicks. Time I'm recording this, a few hours removed from their 9-game winning streak being snapped at the hands of LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the visiting Los Angeles Lakers on national television. I believe the final score is, let me get this straight, 113 to 105. This is a Knicks team that is kind of a nitty-gritty game from first tip to halfway through the fourth until the Knicks didn't have a single field goal for about 5.5 minutes, and they had a whopping 19 points to cap off the fourth quarter. And I think like most of those like the last 2 minutes, they started hocking them up when it was garbage time. Listen, people talking about it, what a testament it is. You win despite Mitchell Robinson being out for a couple months. It is now Julius Randle. Seems like, about a week now you have him out. Seems like a couple more weeks you're going to add on. Hell, even OG Anunoby going down with some elbow inflammation or something unexpectedly, and yet this team's still winning despite him. Jalen Brunson, ice in his veins and everything. The 40 points against Indiana, catching fire in that fourth quarter. Not so much tonight, but listen, I even myself overreactions a little bit. I'm gonna choose to take it with a grain of salt. This is a team that just won 9 straight, 14-2 in the month of January. Listen, you're not gonna win them all. We'll leave it at that for now. But and you got a Brooklyn teammate. They're treading water. They laid a beating on Philly tonight. Things have not gone as well for them, but we'll see how things pan out with them, Jock Vaughn, and that whole deal. And yes, real quick on the baseball front, brought up spring training. Right around the corner, a couple weeks removed from it, we had a big splash go down in the league. We had Corbin Burns, former ace of the Milwaukee Brewers, former Cy Young winner, perennial All-Star, one of the best in the league. Gets dealt to the Orioles in exchange for top prospect Joey Ortiz. He's a shortstop, and also recently graduated pitching prospect DL Hall, I believe was top 10 as well. Also got traded for like the 30th overall pick or something. I guess you could trade picks now. Real quick, from a Mets standpoint, when Stearns took over, it was kind of this unofficial connection to Milwaukee. It was with Council, strike one. Now with Burns, strike two. You want to talk about being behind 0-2 in the count, with Woodruff or something being still out there. I don't even know if I want him at this point, all the fucking injury, concerns and everything. But I feel like Burns is a guy. People say he only has the 1 year of control. Well, tell me how Francisco Lindor, when Cohen traded for him, he was any different. Similar situation. You look at Baltimore. Yeah, I know their farm system's loaded, like top 30th on their pipeline would probably be top 10 in most systems or everything, what yada yada. You're looking at a Milwaukee team, didn't get a single everyday MLB player for one of the consensus top 10 starting pitcher in the league. And now, meanwhile, in Baltimore's case, a team that can only go up from the season they had last year, winning 100 games out of the blue. People thought they'd be respectable. They didn't have them winning the AL entirely, regular season being the 1 seed. Now you add a perennial, a bona fide ace to the mix for essentially nothing for your in terms of your MLB roster. I think it just shows, just like many other moves you could make the case for, a move I think the Mets should have been in on. You want to talk about, shortstop, the one position you have locked up long term, with Frankie Lindor sitting there, you got Jet Williams on the cusp, Luis Angel Acuna you just dealt for. You're telling me you couldn't sacrifice either one of those, and then you want all right, pitching prospects, I know is kind of the weaker side of things for him. Mike Vassell, I think, you want to make the argument for him, but I think you could have twisted and turned it a little bit, negotiated. At Corbin Burns, you have a 1-2 punch of him and Senga headlining this rotation, and things are looking brighter a little bit brighter than they previously were before that deal was made. Say the same thing about the Yankees. I'll talk about obviously Garrett Cole is your ace coming off of Cy Young. I think well, now with Burns there, you have an argument, but prior to that trade, Cole, without any question, the best starter in the American League, and you could even make a case for the entire MLB. But you either got Carlos Rodon's fat ass coming off a 7 year ERA, just a total debacle on his standpoint. You bring in Marcus Stroman. If he's your two, I hear the rumors Blake Snell might be your two. You don't have that bona fide number two right now unless you're considering it to be Stroman, who has been like a three for a couple years now, or Rodon, who's coming off an all-time bad year for his standards, who was no epitome of success prior to 2 years ago when there was money on the line with Chicago and then doubling down on a contract here with San Fran. Prior to that, he was a fucking abomination. I think we saw a glimpse of that last year. I don't think you want either one of those as your two. And you want to talk about a great number two for them, Cole Burns. You want to talk about that tandem? I think, unless I'm blanking on somebody, well, all right, Ohtani Yamamoto now, but that is right up there for one of the best 1-2 punches in the league. I think unquestionably top five, and you however you want to rank it there. Now Baltimore's got a bona fide ace, and if Kyle Bradish doesn't take a step back, you got him as a solid number two. Grayson Rodriguez is a three. They got things cooking down in B-Town, down in Maryland. Real quick on the Mets front, signed Jake Diekman to a minor league deal, I believe. Major, it might have been, who knows. They also signed, speaking of the Orioles, signed Shintaro Fujinami to a 1 year deal, which I think is worth about $3 million for this upcoming season. So some bullpen help there. At least I could assume that was part of that $10 million fund they were willing to still spend on the off season, but we'll see how the cookie crumbles. We got a couple more weeks, not so much a long way to go, but we got other shit on the horizon prior to that, and we'll get to that bridge. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But all in all, guys, thank you for listening. If you want, give me some feedback, YouTube comments, how the setup's looking, YouTube footage, and all that. Spotify, as always, any questions, comments, concerns on that, feel free to let me know. And as always, appreciate the support, guys. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Apples to Apples podcast. See you guys.